Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia Live show. I am your host, Billy Powell. You are watching this probably on the Keeping the Nostalgia Live show on YouTube, or you are listening to this on Keeping the Nostalgia Live. That's all one word, keepingthenostalgialive.podbean.com. Go to both of those places and you can hear great interviews about the game of basketball from the great state of Indiana, or 6 degrees of basketball from the great state of Indiana. Today we have with us, we have Graham Honaker and we have Jerry Logan, who are authors of a book that is going to be released in March, but it is available for pre-order, and you can actually get it for $4 off if you pre-order it. And I think it's March 21st, 2021. It's coming out on pediment.com, pediment.com, and it is called The Cinderella Strategy, the game plan behind Butler University's rise to prominence. You know, Butler University was one of the biggest or smallest schools to make the final game of the 2010 NCAA men's basketball tournament. And what did they do? They went back and did it again in 2011. And we are going to talk today with these two authors about what it did and what it brought to the table for Butler University and the Butler University Bulldogs. Both of you guys, thank you and welcome to the show. I won't get real into things. I'd like you guys kind of explain to us where this idea came from, what the book is about, and let's go from there.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Billy. It's an honor to be on here. Been a fan of yours for a long time, and what you do to preserve the heritage of Indiana basketball is really special. So thank you for having us. Jerry and I both came at this book from different vantage points, and I'll let him share his perspective and how he got involved here. You know, my perspective, I'm going into my 9th year here at Butler. So I actually just missed the Final Fours, although if you read the book, you'll see how big of an impact they had on me coming to Butler. But in those last 8 years, I kept observing everything that was happening here at Butler, and those Final Fours being a huge catalyst for it. And we could talk more as we go through, but fundraising and new buildings and the move to the Big East, and just it felt like this kind of magical ride I was on. And you know, you'd have donors talk about how proud they are of those Final Fours, even to this day. So I tried to start capturing all this, writing, you know, at the very minimum, when I'm an old guy and I'm getting there every day, to have memories of all these things that were happening at Butler. And so I started writing just stories, capturing things here. And so I was kind of the insider on the story. And then Jerry, you want to share your perspective?
Sure. Yeah, I had no connection at all to Butler. I'm up in Massachusetts. I was doing doctoral work at Boston College and decided I wanted to look at how universities leveraged the attention they got from Cinderella runs during March Madness. And I wanted to go far enough back in time that you could really get a sense for the long-term effects. So I zeroed in on a few schools and decided Butler was the one I wanted to research, having no idea what had gone on there, how long they had kind of been building toward this moment, and then what they had done after it. It just looked good on paper to me. I remembered the runs as a college basketball fan. So kind of unlike Graham, I'm coming at the story from very much an outsider's perspective. Although I think, as Graham and I have compared notes, and we've seen a lot of the same things, which is part of the cool dimension to this story.
You know, what's interesting too is that, you know, Butler is upper echelon now. You know, when I was growing up in the 80s, you know, the nice thing is that I went to Broadway High School, and we would play our sectional, regional, semi-state games at Hinkle Fieldhouse. A matter of fact, we went there in December of 1985 and played Chittard. Broadway played Chittard, and then at the halftime and at the end of that game, they filmed the championship scenes of the movie Hoosiers. So, you know, Butler wasn't you know, it was and it was kind of desolate and kind of empty for a long time, like, you know, and if I'm not mistaken, it was probably free at times. So, you know, what a 360-degree turnaround with an and I don't think it. I mean, I think it continued and became more successful with Brad Stevens. But I think a few years even before Brad Stevens came up on board, I think that's when Butler started to get into one of those programs that you just can't call mid-major anymore.
Yeah, so I think one of the elements of this book that we want to make sure to articulate, it's not just those Final Fours and then the 10 years after. We start the story really in the late 80s, with President Jeff Bannister and Barry Collier leading with this concept of basketball first to elevate the school. One of the most, you hit it on the head about free, one of the most amazing statistics, and maybe the most amazing statistic in the book, because it's only been about 30 years ago. In 1989, there were 15, I'll repeat that, 15 paid season ticket holders for Butler basketball.
Wow.
And even during conference games, you were getting, 1,200, 2,000 people. And you think 1989 to 2000 to 2020 is not that long of a time. And to look at where Butler is now, averaging, 8,000 plus, selling out Big East games, it's really remarkable. But we made sure, and Jerry does a great job of covering that lead up in the late 80s to where Butler is now. That's almost as impressive as those two back-to-back Final Fours where Butler's gone in that time span.
And in the same regard, the seating becomes less and less to make it more NCAA acceptable for a stadium, correct?
Yeah, I think we trace the history of Hinkle, which I know you know well, but the idea back in 1928 to build a 15,000 seat arena for a school that at the time had about 2,000 students would seem preposterous to virtually anyone who didn't live in Indiana. And to live, to understand high school basketball. Now it really is about the perfect size for us. We're now 4,700 students, down to 9,200 now in Hinkle, really right where we need to be in terms of the cushion. We have, back in the day, you'd have all bleachers and you'd have 15,000 or 17,000 if the fire marshal wasn't paying attention. But now most of Hinkle are chairbacks, and we're about 9,200, about the same as Cameron Indoor Stadium actually in capacity.
So where does the book idea come from? What and how did you find Jerry? How have you guys worked together to do this? How hard was it to find a publisher? Give us a little bit of rundown about that.
I'll let you take this one.
Sure. Yeah, I was doing research for my dissertation in 2017, and so I came out to Butler in April, interviewed a number of people, and one of the tricks of the trade in the interviewing, which is what a lot of people do, is called snowballing. As soon as you finish an interview, you say, "Hey, who else should I talk to?" And someone, I can't even remember who, said, "Hey, next time you're here, you should talk to Graham." So I reached out to him when I got back to New England and said, "Hey, I'm coming again in October 2017. Could we chat?" He said, "Absolutely." And I remember we met in a restaurant, and it was actually, all the interviews at Butler were so easy. Everybody is so friendly. But this one was particularly easy because we just talked hoops for an hour, and it was fantastic. And Graham's full of stories. So I think at that time I had said, I'd hope to turn this into a book. Graham said, "Hey, I got a file cabinet full of stories and a brain even more full of stories that I'd love to get down on paper sometimes." And, looking back, I think that was the seed, just kind of sharing, hey, there's a big story here. And we both had an urge to tell it. And I was kind of coming at it from this more academic, research-based perspective. And one thing I love about the book was Graham was coming at it from a practitioner. Hey, I'm on the front lines here, fundraising and living this thing. And so for me, one of the neatest parts about the book was to combine those two angles and try to tell a story together. Outsider, insider, practitioner, academic, and try to make it sing for people.
A couple more motivations I would add. We have a lot of diehard fans. We have such great fans, loyal, passionate alumni, donors, fans. There are things in this book that even they're not going to be aware of. There's some real insider stories on Greg Popovich and Jay Wright, and then the metrics of all of it. How much the endowment's grown, the fundraising increase, the phenomenal increase in applications to Butler since 2010, 2011, 2012. So that was a motivation. I really thought the Butler community, this would be neat to share with them. Another motivation, and I'm biased, Billy, but this has been a rough period for college basketball in a lot of ways. Recruiting, and I'm not condemning the one and done or the G League, but it's been tough. And some of the programs under investigation, I wanted to showcase a program that's done it the right way and did it the right way before the Final Fours, continue to do it after the Final Fours, and is still won. We talk about in the book, when Brad Stevens left, there was this mantra that Butler is going to die, like the program's over, it's done. And we've gone to the tournament multiple times since then. We miss Brad Stevens, but the season ticket sales have been increasing. But I feel like we're an outlier, along with some other great programs of doing it the right way, staying clear of the NCAA. Two other motivations. This has also been a really challenging time in higher education, particularly for smaller private institutions in terms of financial situations, fundraising, enrollment and applications, which has even become more difficult during COVID. And Butler's thrived during this period. And then the final motivation, I'm a leadership strategy guru and reading all these books. My wife's still trying to convince me to read fiction. But a lot of those books are, how Marriott does things, or Southwest Airlines, or Starbucks. You're hard pressed to find a university where you can learn about leadership and strategy and culture. So those would be some additional motivations for the book. And then the publisher, you asked about the publisher, felt like my high school dating life again. I was getting a lot of rejections, a lot of no's, and a lot of unreturned phone calls. But Pediment has a kind of genre around sports and universities, and reached out to the head of their publishing, and lo and behold, got a call back. Jerry and I had a Zoom call with them, and they took a chance on us. They believed in us.
Pediment did a really good job. I saw they did a really good job on LSU's NCAA football championship from last year. So, pediment.com is where this book is available.
That's their highest selling book of all time. We're going to try to eclipse it.
So where can they get it? When is it coming out? What kind of reviews or what kind of appreciation have you seen for it so far?
It's going to come out in March. It's available right now on pediment.com, as you said, and you can get a discounted price. We're also going to donate some of the proceeds from the book to Project 44, which honors the memory of Andrew Smith and promotes bone marrow registry, and has a goal of saving 44 lives through bone marrow transplants. So far the praise and the regard, I think one of the high points for us so far have been the testimonials, which I think is more a tribute to the respect folks have for Butler. But in the span of 2 weeks, we had Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Nance, Val Ackerman, who's the commissioner of the Big East Conference, Adam Grant, who's a world-renowned guru on leadership, our own Bobby Plump, famous from his Milan legendary days and Butler Bulldog, Greg Popovich, and a few more say, yeah, I'm on board. We have so much respect for Butler. And so they've endorsed the book. And then I think the people that have read sections have been really high on it as well. Jerry, thoughts? your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, as an outsider, what's been the most nerve-wracking part for me is you do the research, you think you're doing really good hard work, but then to tell the story that you've kind of pieced together or seen or heard to actual Butler people is a bit nerve-wracking, because the fear always in the back of my mind is that they've lived the experience and they hear words coming out of my mouth and they say, "No, that wasn't how it was." So just yesterday we were on a Zoom with about 7 older Butler alums sharing about the book, and they fired back at us with stories of their own that matched the very things that we were talking about in the book. And for me to hear them say that and say, "Yeah, you're onto something. You guys are echoing our experience and the experience we had decades ago, and that we've had as we've continued this relationship with the university." That's a real powerful endorsement too. It tells me that the things we were picking up on are not just our own impressions, but they're more widespread than that.
We also have had great support from Butler. President Jim Danko, his wife Bethany, Barry Collier. I joke that we had basically written the full draft before I took it to President Danko and said, "Are you okay with this?" Yeah, probably should have done that a few months prior, but they've been really, really supportive. And one of the things I like is that there are some real heroes of this story. Barry Collier, President Danko, President Bobby Fong, President Jeff Bannister, other coaches that I feel they're deserving of recognition. And then there are unsung heroes that we pay tribute to in the book. The Michael Kaltemarks, who runs the live mascot program, and what that bulldog has done to extend the story, and others. So I guess a fifth motivation would be wanting to pay homage to those folks who've helped Butler rise to this level of prominence.
Jerry, what else have you authored or written? And Graham, is this your first endeavor in writing?
This is the first book for both of us, unless Graham has hidden something very important from me for a long time. This is the first book for both of us. I've written several academic articles and much smaller, more niche publications that probably most people have never seen. So this is the first big one for me as well.
I started writing a book on Indiana basketball when I was 15, and I introduced, we have author notes at the beginning talking about our backgrounds. And I think I say I didn't know much about G.I. Joe or Darth Vader, but I could name the Wooden Award winners from the last 20 years when I was 14. I'm kind of a demented individual when it comes to basketball, but I had started writing a book which never got published. But the cool thing is, and I know you know this name, Billy, but Bob Hamill, the famous Bloomington Herald Times writer for so many years, was an idol of mine growing up, reading his works and his books, and we've become friends over the last few years, and he became a mentor for us on this project. So it kind of came full circle to me, which was also really cool. But first and maybe last book, we'll see, but yeah.
And close friends with Coach Bob Knight, if I'm not mistaken, also.
Very close friends, the closest friend.
Yeah. So the book is called The Cinderella Strategy, the game plan behind Butler University's rise to prominence. You can get it at pediment.com. It's going to be released in March of 2021. I can't believe that we've made it a little bit through the interview without Graham bringing up, of course he did this pre-interview, without bringing up Steve Alford dropping 57 points on Broad Ripple High School. And let me give you, Hinkle Fieldhouse was that 15,000 seat field house at that time. And I promise you there were 14,000 people there, and it was absolutely nuts and crazy.
I've watched that. Go ahead, Jerry.
Billy, I know you're the person asking the questions here, but can I turn the tables just for a second here? Because when I first stepped foot in Hinkle, I knew it from Hoosiers like anyone else, but I was blown away. I saw it, of course, after the big renovations, which were wonderfully done. The more I learned about the story, but I was knocked off my feet. I ended up saying to Graham, I have to get my dad here. He made it happen for us, and it was just a really meaningful experience for me. But I was, the question always nagging me, because I played ball all the way through Division III college basketball, small ball. What was it like to play in that field house? Can I flip the table and just ask you, even if you're getting lit up for 57, what's it like?
So that's an interesting question, because my freshman year we won 4, 5, 6. We went 6-1 on that floor my freshman year, and then we lost my sophomore, my junior year, and then we went 4, 5, 5-1 my senior year. Um, if you do not have a vertical, it gives you another 2 or 3 inches. I'm telling you, it gives you another 2 or 3 inches. And, it's the Hoosiers thing, a part about it. It's the history of, Tony Hinkle, Joe Sexton, Barry Collier, when he actually coached there, and then he played there, and he wore those striped shorts. So, there's a mystique about it, which the mystique has grown fonder and fonder and gotten better smelling and better smelling. And so it is. Even when I went there this past summer, and Graham was nice enough to give us a little bit of a tour, even with this pandemic and what was going on, it still gives me goosebumps. It's a shrine. I tell you, and you guys writing this book is even going to bring it even more out to light for those people who don't have the history with it that we did with going there for all the high school basketball tournament games. But it's a fabulous. You could blindfold me, bring me in the building, and I could smell that I'm in Hinkle Fieldhouse.
I say, Billy, I'm the luckiest guy. If you go back to my childhood and just the passion for the game, the love of Indiana basketball, and to be able to walk in there every day and living out what I do, edit this out so the Butler folks don't hear it, but I do this for free. I mean, I'm living a dream, and it still gives me chills going in that building. And, it's awesome. And the one thing I will say about the Steve Alford story, I always introduce you as the guy who held him under 60. I try to reframe that.
I still tell you though, man, if Coach wouldn't have gone after him, I don't know if it would have been the same outcome or what. He was just determined when we decided to foul him 25 for 25 from the free throw line. What can you do?
Well, the most impressive stat is how much you guys fouled him and his hair still didn't move. I thought that was
exactly, and we still had 5 people on the floor, but at the end of the game. But Coach Smith gets a really rough time for that game, and of course, Coach Smith brought up to the state championship in 1980. When Stacey Tran hit that 57-footer, and Stacey Tran went on to play at Notre Dame, and then Raiders fame before tragically dying early in life. But he told me before he passed away, he said, I apologized. I made a wrong decision at that point in time, but it's just something that's going to live down in history. So once again, tell me the title, but do you guys have a copy in front of you so you can flip around the picture? I know you guys are going to see the picture in the link of our interview, and I'm also going to put a picture of the book on top of the interview, but do you guys have one there right in front of you, or you can flip around and show the camera?
Let's see. Am I able to screen share?
Let's see here.
Let's see if I can.
Let's see.
Can you see that?
Yes, I do. Yes. Fantastic.
So
okay.
That's
great.
hot off the presses. We love the logo, or the cover, which really gives you the idea that basketball was prominent in Butler's rise, but these other elements, which are covered throughout the book in terms of culture, risk-taking, and innovation, and a few others as well.
At one time, did your cover have something that said a little bit of luck?
We did. You got a good memory. You saw the earlier version. We edited that out. There's always luck. There's always how the ball bounces. And one of the games that always sticks out to me, if you remember, was the 2011 game. It was the round of 32, and Butler played Pittsburgh in Washington, D.C. And it was the craziest ending I've ever seen, where Butler was up a point and Shelvin Mack fouled a guy at half court, and Butler should have lost the game and didn't. So there's luck involved, but we tweaked this because it was a deliberate strategy back in the late 1980s, which hopefully people will learn more about in reading the book. And I just thought it takes a little bit away from everything that Butler did in building the foundation by putting luck. Although luck it's always an element in basketball.
So you guys can go to pediment.com today and get the Cinderella strategy, the game plan behind Butler's University rise to prominence. We have been joined by Butler University's very own Graham Honaker and author Jerry Logan. Guys, thank you so much. Anything you guys want to add?
I just want to add, again, my appreciation for what you do. You know, you're the best in the country at preserving the heritage, and every day putting up photos and stories. And Indiana basketball is very, very special, and it's important that we keep that nostalgia alive, right? I think that's the title of your podcast and show, but I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be on here.
No, those are very, very kind words that I won't let my wife see, because she'll just look at me and shake her head. Jerry, Graham, thank you guys so much. Best of success with the book. And guys, go to pediment.com and get your copy today. It's out in March of 2021. Thank you guys so much. Check us out at keepingthenostalgiaalive.podbean.com. And hopefully you're watching this on the Keeping the Nostalgia Live show on YouTube. Or Graham or Jerry have shared this, which is perfectly fine. And get the book today.
Thank you, Billy.
Thanks, Bill.